Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, how you doing, mate?
I'm missing Villa, mate. I'm
Yeah,
missing usually oh god, right. Forget
you,
I said this. Usually
yeah, you like the international break. You're one
I
of the
rep
few.
international break
Yeah,
hard. Yeah,
and I find myself watching
it's fun.
international football to keep you happy. And here we are, Dan. Neither of us are happy because, as you guys know, I almost said Villa then. England have lost 2-0 to Belgium in the Nations League. And, it puts us in a bit of a difficult situation, doesn't it, really, Dan?
Yeah, yeah, both for us personally and for the Nations League itself. Yeah, it was. Look, it was. I didn't have much confidence going into the game. Really, Belgium are. They're. I mean, no, it sounds silly me sat here telling you how good Belgium are, but obviously a very renowned side. I didn't really fancy our chances coming into the game because um, of in competitive football, Belgium we haven't really fared well against in the past. Like obviously we got that win against at Wembley against them not long ago, but wasn't really enthralling, was it? Didn't really
No.
inspire us. It was a 2-1 win, but we didn't exactly outclass Belgium. And going to them today, what was interesting was the first time we've played against Belgium in Belgium since 1970, which surprised me. But no, Belgium uh, weren't exactly at their best today either. I think, as I was saying in our preview podcast, they've got problems of their own whereby this sort of golden generation is phasing out slightly
Yeah.
and not exactly, fizzling out quite yet, but are going into or past their primes now. The average age of that Belgium squad was almost 29, which which seems bizarre because it still feels like these guys are kids, and perhaps that's because
Yeah.
they haven't quite hit their full potential. But no, I didn't think either side were at their best tonight. But the same lingering problems were still there, I felt, for England.
Yeah, and again, I think that lies in the system, Dan, as we spoke about on the last podcast. I think what's interesting is England and Belgium they matched each other, they neutralised each other with the 3-4-3 essentially. And as soon as Belgium got the goals, they were happy to just sit back and defend. And I mean, the one thing I've got to say, how on earth Belgium didn't finish that game with 8 men is beyond me because Mounier brought down Grealish so often. I mean, he got booked eventually. Same with Axel Witsel, brought down Grealish too frequently. And Alderweireld, it seemed like Alderweireld's only job was to hack down Grealish.
Yeah.
And if that was his only job, then you did a very good job, man. Like you
Yeah,
were doing
yeah,
bits,
did
but
well. Did
you
well. Even Dries Mertens was having a crack at points, wasn't
yeah,
he?
and
He blocked him off that one time. It was unbelievable.
it's and I think and what this podcast is essentially becoming every week is Dan and I just waxing lyrical about Jack Grealish, but this man truly is world class. He was the difference, Dan. And before we get on to Jack, I think we've just got to give a round of applause to Dries Mertens for that free kick because that was beautiful, man. Just
Wasn't it?
removing the biases from that. Dries Mertens is a wonderful player. Napoli's second all-time top goal scorer, I believe, and he's some talent. And not too many people, if you don't watch your football outside of the Premier League, will know too much about Dries Mertens. But he's a mercurial footballer.
Yeah, it's one of those whereby because of the career that he's had and just how good he's been at Napoli, a lot of people are slightly unfamiliar with Dries Mertens. I was listening to Jamie Redknapp on punditry before the game, calling his Dries Martens, and oh god, driving me crazy. But Mertens is if you needed a moment in time to show you how good Dries Mertens was, there's De Bruyne and there's Dries Mertens over that free kick. And look who took the free kick.
Yeah,
To be taking
exactly.
free kicks over Kevin De Bruyne, you need to be a serious talent. And he is. So a little asterisk next to this stat because it was at the time of the free kick. So Dries Mertens obviously doubled Belgium's advantage with that goal, and he has a conversion rate in the Nations League of 42.9%.
Wow.
So just under half of all Dries Mertens shots are hitting the back of the net. He scored in 3 consecutive games now for Belgium. He's on fire. And what a player, and that free kick encapsulated it perfectly. There was a little bit of criticism coming in for the wall. Ty was one of the players that didn't jump. I
It's
think,
going straight over Dyer though. Obviously, Ty should
yeah.
jump, and I am of the opinion that you either all jump or you don't. But I
Mhm.
mean, if Dyer gets off the floor, Dan, then surely he's that's going out maybe for a corner or something else. You just got to get something on it, really, haven't you?
Yeah, it was a little confusing. Look, we don't know really what the tactics were in that. It's one of those where KDB obviously has a lot of tendencies to put that under the wall. We've seen him
Mm.
do it so many times for City, and so perhaps that's in we do or don't know whether that's a tactical thing, whereby sort of the players sort of gauge on whether it's a jump. We don't know, but the wall didn't jump. And look, I think with free kicks, I never like to get too sucked into what the ball did or didn't do, or what the goalkeeper could or couldn't have done. It's such, from that closer distance, it's so difficult to get it up and over the wall. And so, as you rightly started off by saying, mate, full credit to Dries Mertens for that free kick. It was absolutely brilliant. It clears Tyrone Mings, who is all of 6'6",
Yeah.
comfortably by a few inches, and ducks down. It almost ends in the bottom corner past Jordan Pickford. The dip on that free kick was absolutely masterful. And yeah, full credit must go to Dries Mertens, and yeah, it proves why he's taking that free kick over KDB, doesn't it?
It does, and to be honest, Pickford's not really having a great time, and I don't think it's his fault. Especially on the first goal, obviously slight deflection off Ty. It's really frustrating on the first goal, and this is the last we'll pretty much talk about. Belgium and the game itself, because I think the rest of the podcast does just lend itself to Jack Grealish's performance, for especially in that second half. But from from the moment Lukaku receives the ball, you can see Kevin De Bruyne make the run beyond the defense, and it looks like that's the pass he's going to make. Unfortunately, because it's Romelu Lukaku who's holding the ball up, he hasn't necessarily got that. He's not got the hold up ability that someone like a Harry Kane has, for example. So he has four players who are then surrounding him after he's eventually taken his first and second touch. And to Lukaku's full credit, the pass he finds is absolutely insane to Yuri Tielemans. But my biggest nitpick is of course he's got the defenders around him. He's got Jordan Henderson around him as well. You see Declan Rice step over. Now, Declan Rice is a player who I'm not entirely convinced that. I've seen a lot of him, but I think it'd be hasty of me to come out and say I don't rate him. But I think there's definitely a player there. I think it's the constant Kante comparisons that I struggle with. But Declan Rice gets sucked in way too easy, and Lukaku manages to find this inch perfect pass to Tielemans, and obviously he's got all the space in the world to get this shot off. It unfortunately takes the deflection off Ty. But it's something so simple. Like, you shouldn't have four men like that around the ball and still allow him to make that pass off to Tielemans, because the amount of times where Kane or even Grealish throughout the rest of the game, Dan, they had 4 or 5 players on them at all times, and they weren't allowed to make that pass. They weren't allowed to drop the shoulder and run. Belgium were really efficient in that, and that's an area where England certainly lacked tonight. And it was really disappointing to concede in the manner that we did, I thought, Dan, for that first goal.
Yeah, look, I mean, Romelu Lukaku is he had a brilliant game. I thought, he's been directly involved in 19 goals in his last 13 games for Belgium, which is absolutely ridiculous. His loan to Inter has done him the absolute world of good, and he looks so much more precise and direct in the final third than he looks. He looks poles apart from the player that we saw at United, and I thought he had a brilliant game. And England were very wary of him, and he got the better of our defence on more than a few occasions, and that being one of them. We paid too much of a close eye to him, and when you've got a player like Yuri Tielemans on the edge of the box, who has been in pristine form for Leicester for not just this season where he's been remarkable, but for a lot of the last campaign too. The threats that he poses from sort of 20-25 yards, and yes, it gets a deflection, and I actually think Jordan Pickford gets just a fraction of a glove on it. But again, I'm really not Jordan Pickford's biggest fan. I really don't like England's goalkeeping selection at all, to be honest with you. And that's a different conversation for a completely different podcast. I think the goal was, yeah, disappointing to concede because, as you say, that we had seemingly enough numbers back to nullify that situation, but didn't seem to. And but look, in a different world, the block from Tyrone could take it out for a corner, or even if it carries on, Pickford could get an extra fingertip on it and put it onto the post, and it then hits the post and goals it. So you can argue that it was unlucky for England, but um, I just thought it was. I didn't think we started the game in particularly inspiring fashion, and that sort of encapsulated the start of the game for England. And I wasn't at all surprised when we went 1-0 down.
Of course. And I think we actually saw the better of England. And when I say England, I mean, of course, Jack Grealish in that second half, Dan. I think the system, listen, England were unfortunate with injuries and with whatnot, with Sterling and with Rashford being out as well. Mount has been forced into this position where he has to play on the wings in the same role that Grealish is playing, obviously just on the other side. Again, forcing people to draw comparisons where they shouldn't be made. And Mount is a fine player. I don't have anything against Mason Mount. I don't think anyone does. I hope not anyway, because you just got to look at the amount of goals he's scored for Chelsea. He's done bits, considering, but I think there's a distinct lack of pace up front, and that was constantly being reminded. But I think it's not just the pace; it's just how England were looking to play. Because obviously Mount is more of this central midfielder. We've seen him play on the right side of the midfield for Chelsea on occasion, but it's not a position he's too familiar with. And Kane was very much being the Harry Kane of Tottenham. He was coming deep and he's looking to play that ball up for someone who's making the run inside. Now, neither Mount or Grealish are that guy, and it just didn't work for me, Dan. It really didn't. But in the second half, things do get better with Jack Grealish. Here's some numbers. I'm going to run it down for you, Dan. I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure you guys have seen this as well on Twitter. But shout out to Statman Dave for posting this. Jack Grealish against Belgium, 89% pass accuracy, 85% of his duels he won. He suffered 7 fouls, shock horror, 5 touches inside the box, 4 successful take-ons. He had 3 shots, one of which was inside the box, which came very close to being a goal-scoring opportunity, if you guys remember. And he created 2 chances. Now, considering England lost this game 2-0, this reads very well for Jack. And he's just world-class, Dan. He really is. I've got nothing more to say on the matter. Jack Grealish is a truly world-class player.
Yeah, he showed it out there tonight, mate. I thought he was certainly from an England perspective the best player on the pitch tonight. Just before I get into the whole and just completely go off on a Jack Grealish tangent, I just want to credit Bukayo Saka.
Yeah.
Just quickly, he was also playing, and I thought he was fantastic tonight. I really did, and I thought a lot of the reason why we looked so much better in the second half was because of the fact that Saka came on for Chilwell, and I think Saka's a far more sort of, in terms of perhaps playing as an inverted fullback at times and coming inside, he's a bit more of a creative outlet than Ben Chilwell. There's no slander against Ben Chilwell, I really like him, but Saka and Grealish on that left-hand side were brilliant. And one thing that I think did change for Jack in the second half is he seemed to play a bit more of a Villa role, in inverted commas, whereby he came off that left wing and was sort of getting involved in sort of a free roam role, which is where Grealish is at his best, when you give him the freedom of not just the attacking third, but the whole pitch. Like he can really do it in each third of the pitch, just like in transition. We saw that lovely little flick with the heel where he spins it up over his own shoulder.
So good.
And that's what you can play him in each different phase of the attack, and he impresses in every position. The way that he seemed like the only creative force coming inside for England at times. I think he was let down by the others around him, and that's not a slander on the player's fault. I don't think there's enough movement. I don't think there's enough tempo at times in that front three. It seems a bit static. I think that it seems too separated and too wide at times. I think it would be benefited to come narrow. But, Dan, to put it to you like this, we know the wealth of attacking talent that England have. You know, when you consider that, Ross Barkley's not making the cut, Danny Ings is injured. Jamie Vardy is retired from international. Like Callum Wilson has played very well this season. Even he can stake a claim. We've scored
Mm.
one goal from open play in the Nations League this season in 5 games. One goal from the open play, and with the bank and the wealth of attacking players that England have, Jack included, that can't be.
No, it really can't. And I think you just got to look at the changes that were made as well. In that Calvert-Lewin came on and he was missing in action. And again, that's nothing really. That's no Calvert-Lewin slander. I think it's the system. We changed from this 3-4-3 that we were playing into a 4-3-3 and shoved Calvert-Lewin out on the right. And it kind of looked like we were going to a 4-4-2 at the time, bringing Sancho and Calvert-Lewin on, keeping Kane on as well. But you're wasting a perfectly good number 9 who likes to hold the ball up and is in many ways very similar to Harry Kane. So, I mean, you've got to question Southgate's tactics and his changes. What else could he have really done? I think, to be honest, he's unfortunate that Ings is injured, because Ings is the kind of guy you want to bring on. He's the one who you want on the end of these balls that Harry Kane's playing. Up the pitch, Dan. That's his game. I think Kane and Calvert-Lewin are ultimately too similar to play together, especially when you're shoving, someone who is very much a number 9 out on the right.
Well, let me take it back a bit further than that, mate. I thought the midfield partnership, you're struggling for goals. As I said, one goal in at the time 4 what became 5 Nations League games. And
Yeah,
we start a midfield 2 of Rice and Henderson.
yeah, exactly.
Like, what, really? Like, there's no creativity. There's like, neither of those players have the ability to take a man on, beat a man, or play a line splitting pass. I do like both of those players in their own individual rights. I think the problem is with both of those players is they both operate at their best at the base of a midfield 3.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, you wouldn't, I
definitely.
wouldn't I wouldn't partner either of those players together in a midfield, in a pivot, in a 2. This England squad, for me, Dan, needs to play 4-3-3.
Yeah,
I think with the wing backs that we have, with the lack of quality that we have at centre back, I don't know why we try and field 3. I think it gives more scope for the wing backs like Saka, like Walker, to bomb on, like we see Walker doing for Man City. I think it brings. I don't know where. I'm now growing on the idea of Jack as a wide man,
yeah. I
because
think,
I used to think that. I used to think he was sort of forced out there a little bit because Villa had such a lack of quality in the final third. But now I watch him play and I'm like, okay, but I would really like if you had Rashford, Kane, Sancho, or Sterling, or whoever, and Grealish in a sort of 4-3-3 with a 10, I would be really interested to see him in that attacking role, because the other thing which he won't get credited with tonight was, I thought he worked tirelessly, and I thought his work rate defensively was equally as impressive as what he did going forward. And I would be interested in to see him operate in a midfield 3 with the likes of Foden or Henderson or whoever you want to play. And I think that might be how, because we went there to a 4-3-3.
yeah,
We played a 3 at the World Cup, then we went to a 4-3-3. I think that's what we played at Spain,
I think so. Yeah,
which
and
is
yeah,
crowning Southgate's crowning moment, I would argue, in terms of a performance. That's the best England performance that I can remember in recent times.
yeah.
That, I think, is the system we need to play. This 3-4-3, I don't think it works.
No, I think you're spot on as well. And as well as we kind of mentioned in the last podcast, it's that familiarity. Not many teams play with a back 3 or a back 5. The only team in England that really do it and fully commit to it, obviously, is someone like Wolves. And you just got to look at how I don't want to say they've kind of tipped off a bit, on a downwards trajectory, but this season has been underwhelming for Wolves fans. It's fair to say the results haven't quite been what they expected. And it's a counter-attacking formation at the end of the day, and England have far too many good attacking players to be playing a 3-4-3. Dan, it's scandalous, it's criminal, everyone in that side knows how to play a 4-3-3. They've all played in it before at some point. It's not going to be anything too alien. It's something that can be changed. And we have so many players because, think of who can occupy that 10, Dan. You've got Mount, you've got Foden, you've got Maddison, you've got Grealish, you've got the depth of the wingers. You can then afford to play with your two in a double pivot in the midfield, and you can get away with it because, overall the squad is just more balanced than, that's starting. But it's I don't see Southgate changing it now. I'd be very surprised if he changed it. But for the Euros, as we were mentioning on the Sports Weekly podcast earlier, Dan, to plug that, there needs to be a level of consistency, and I think we just can't afford to keep tinkering with things, especially this close to the tournament. I think Southgate's made his bed now with the formation, with the players. I think Jack has forced his way in due to injuries and isolations and whatever for wingers. It'll be interesting to see if he plays against Iceland and what happens come the summer. I think it will all depend on how he continues to keep up his form throughout the rest of the season. But it's and that isn't his ability. That's just on how Southgate rates him, because we all know that Jack is a truly world-class talent. And to reiterate that again, Jack Grealish is world-class. But the less said about England, the better, Dan, because we have had other Villa players in action for their nations. Obviously, somewhere closer to home, Scotland and Ireland, both John McGinn and Conor Hourihane, suffered 1-0 losses today to Slovakia and Wales, respectively. Not very good for them. Conor Hourihane came off the bench. Harry Arter got sent off late in that game, I think, so he'll be disappointed with himself there. As you tweeted from the account as well, Dan, the other morning, Dougie Luiz managed 45 minutes for Brazil against Venezuela in a 1-0 win yesterday. So, shout out to Dougie. And Emi was on the bench for Argentina, unfortunately. It doesn't look like we're going to see much of him recently. But no, taking it across to the boys repping in Africa, Marvelous Nakamba's Zimbabwe side lost to Algeria 3-1, and they play him again. So a chance for redemption. Google's not showing any lineups or anything like that, which is unfortunate. And if you guys watched the last podcast, you'd know the nightmare we had in terms of trying to find if Campbell was even in the squad. So to be honest, I couldn't even tell you if he played in that game. You'd have to check on his socials. But finally, Dan, something that a clip that was brought to my attention through your Twitter feed, talking about the main man Trezeguet. What a little flick from him, man! That was beautiful.
Oh,
Egypt, they beat Togo.
Yes.
1-0, and Trez played a big part in that, and that little flick down, it was to die for, weren't it?
Whew. Whew. Wow. Oh my God, who is this? Who is this? What have you done with Trezeguet?
Stepping up in Salah's absence, Dan.
I'm watching him. This man, right, Dan, I don't know about you, but I have completely and utterly fallen in love with Trezeguet this season.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm going to sound like a massive hypocrite, and I do owe you a massive apology, Trez, because I've basically written you off last season. He has improved no ends. And if I implore anyone watching, if you haven't seen it, go to my Twitter. I think Matt Lynch tweeted it originally, but I'm going to take full credit for it.
That's how I saw it.
Trez, this ball comes in and Trez leaps up with his 1 foot in the air like he's been graced by the spirit of Prime Zidane, brings down this ball, flicks it over a defender's head and wins a penalty. And it's like...
honestly, he won. I didn't realise he won the penalty. Wow.
I think he wins the penalty.
Yeah, that makes it even better.
And he's when he touches this ball, he's at least, 200 foot in the air.
Yeah,
the man floats and just brings down this. Honestly, yeah, I would implore everyone watching to go and check out what Mahmoud Hassan has just done in that game, because it is downright unadulterated filth, and it's probably the best thing outside of Grealish that any Villa player has done tonight. But no, happy for hopefully if Marv did play. You're never too sure with the Egyptian admin. Sorry, the Zimbabwean admin. But yeah, Egypt's got that big win against Togo, so it's looking good for them in their qualifier. They've got a group with Comoros, Togo, and Kenya. How's that for my AFCON knowledge? So hopefully hopefully those boys can get the job done there. So yeah, but no, all good. Disappointed, as you said, that Emi didn't get the minutes the other night, but Franco Armani didn't have the best game in that one,
No,
and
he didn't, did
hopefully
he?
if Martinez can keep performing at the level that he is for Villa, hopefully he can take that mantle. I see that as only being a matter of time, especially with Armani being 33, mate. So yeah, on the whole, a pretty positive international break for Villains, especially for John McGinn.
Yeah,
And
he can
again,
boogie.
just to reiterate, he certainly can. We on the Villa podcast are absolutely delighted for Scotland, and I think it's a really wholesome thing to imagine Jack and John battling that out in the Euros at Wembley against each other next summer. How
Yeah.
beautiful is that?
I mean, he even said in his interview, like, "Look, all my mates are going to be there, so he's got you got to be in it to win it." And
How cute!
a player that good deserves relative success with his nation. I say relative because I don't want Scotland to win it, of course, but to get to a tournament, first tournament in '92 maybe, I can't remember. They
98.
98. They've they deserve it. This bunch of Scotland players, but. Listen, Dan, England do play Iceland next in our next Nations League game before we round up the international break. Obviously, he's coming up against my guy. He's coming up against your guy, man like Berke Bjarnason in the midfield. Grealish versus Berke. It's going to be nice to see. I hope they swap shirts, but I hope they do it behind the scenes so no one can see. COVID don't want to be spreading the virus and that. But listen, it's going to be it's an important game because obviously losing to Belgium tonight is hardly ideal when you're looking at your Nations League qualifications. And I've got to be completely honest with you guys, I had to have Dan explain the Nations League to me just before we came on air because I just don't get it. And I think I've managed to wrap my head around it. I think I have, but it's important that we can get over the line against Iceland, Dan. Iceland sit bottom, we're third. We don't want to be relegated. Saying that, Iceland have lost their last 5 games. So looking at it, on paper, you would hope that England can get the job done. It was very sketchy last time out, wasn't it, Dan?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I'll put it for you this way. To all intents and purposes, we are out of the Nations League. We can't do anything from this position. It's only the top team that goes through into that little semi-final and final process that we were in last season when we came third. So it is essentially nothing rides on this game coming up. But Iceland haven't actually picked up a point so far. They are so close today, so close. It was 1-1 in Denmark. Christian Eriksen, 12 minutes in, scores a penalty, puts Denmark 1-0 up. In the 85th minute, Kjartansson, I'm sorry for any Icelandic viewers, not that I think we have many, if I butchered that, but he, anyway, scores it in the 85th minute, absolute scenes. And then in the 92nd minute, another penalty, Christian Eriksen puts it away and they lose 2-1. So Iceland aren't going to want to go out of this Nations League group without a fight, especially not without a point. They made it really difficult for us last time in Reykjavik. So they're going to come to Wembley. We're trying to make it tough. You'll be pleased to hear, Dan, that Berke Bjarnason did start the game today for Iceland. So he's in the running.
My guy.
Though he was replaced. He was substituted in that game, but he's playing. He's there. So hopefully on the Villa podcast, next time we talk England, we can talk about how Jack and Bjarnason scored a hat-trick each in a 3-3 thrilling draw at Wembley.
That's the dream, mate. That's the dream. And I don't think we could possibly end the podcast on a better note, Dan, on Jack and Berke. 2 wonderful men, 2 wonderful sets of hair, 2 wonderful footballers as well. But if you guys enjoyed this podcast, please do hit the like button, comment your thoughts below. On anything really, we're just interested. I don't have anything specific really. What are your thoughts on England? I guess
just nothing international football related, please. Just anything you've got going on in your lives, guys. Drop it in the comments. Dan and I would much rather talk about that, to be honest with you, at this stage. Yeah. So just anything. What did you have for dinner tonight, guys? Was it nice? Sunday roast, was it? Chicken? Turkey? We're getting in the mood for turkey already.
It's nearly there,
in the comments. Yeah, we're getting. Christmas can start early for me this year. I don't know about you, mate. Usually I'm a 1st of December man, like then it begins. But this year, of all years,
I'm a celebrity started tonight, so that's Christmas. right? Surely
Yeah, Christmas.
that's
Yeah,
yeah.
it's already begun. The festive period is like, so it can start whenever. So whatever, like what, just let us know in the comments whatever's going on. If it's international football, if it must be, then we'll take that. But I'm excited for club football to come back, mate.
Absolutely. And if you guys haven't seen it, Dan and I published a video on the one and only Luke Nillis the other day, which you guys seem to have really enjoyed. So we do really appreciate the support on that. If you haven't seen it, it will be linked at the end in the video annotation. Please check that out. It's one that's been living rent free in my mind for 8 months now. So to finally get it done was quite cathartic. And yeah, if you
Did a
guys,
great job.
thanks, man, I appreciate that. So if you guys did enjoy it, obviously leave a like, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more. Obviously, I know you guys aren't as interested in international football, which, listen, we aren't really either. But Jack and Ty featured. We've got to speak about them. We've got to speak about the Villa boys, especially when John has been doing so well, and the madness that was that flick on from Trezeguet. I mean, we had a podcast solely on that would have been fine. So yeah, if you if you guys enjoy, I've said it 5 times now, but like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.
It's the main man, a hero. He's the main leader of the gang.